Hello, welcome to Keith's Whisky Vlog. Now, as you might see, I'm going to entertain a little bit of a mystery in this blog, so indulge me just for a few moments and then all will be revealed. I'm going to tell you all about the whisky that is hidden here. What I want to talk to you first of all about is a theory you may or may not know about called Caesar's last breath. There's a theory that every single breath, every time you breathe in, some of the molecules, certainly some of the atoms that you breathe in, were actually breathed out by Julius Caesar when he breathed his last breath. Now, pick Julius Caesar, pick any historical figure. You could do Aristotle, Cleopatra, Leonardo da Vinci, Mozart, any of these figures, Jesus Christ himself. Every breath that you breathe in has an element of the air that they breathed in it. What on earth has this got to do with whisky, especially this whisky that I've already poured, that I have sitting in front of me? Well, the idea is that in this particular nip of whisky, certainly in this bottle of whisky, eventually anyway, it will contain a molecule, or maybe just atoms, of every single whisky that has ever been made. It'll take a little bit of time to build up. What am I talking about? Well, big reveal time. In here is a unique bottle. You cannot get it anywhere else. You might say that every single bottle is unique. If you buy, say, an Oban 14-year-old, then although it will be similar to the next bottle of Oban 14-year-old, it will be unique, yes, but there's a uniformity there. In here is a bottle that you cannot get anywhere else. There is no other bottle like it anywhere in the world. It's a little bit of a trend in the whisky world these days. So without any further ado, the big reveal coming. Here is my very own absolutely unique whisky bottle. It is, of course, an infinity bottle. Infinity goes on forever and ever, no ending, infinite. The idea behind an infinity bottle is that you make up your own mix, and as it goes down, you top it back up. Then you drink more, it goes down, you top it back up. Very simple concept, and very popular, as I say, with a lot of whisky drinkers these days. So this is my very own infinity whisky. And I've already taken the liberty of pouring myself some, hence why there is already some in my glass. And since this is a unique whisky, I've also picked a little bit of a comedy glass that I have. This one, it's not flat bottomed, it rolls around, so why not? Now, the most popular name, certainly what I call my bottle, is, well, it's quite simply, it's Keith's Infinity Bottle. Bottled at home since 2020. Single malt Scotch whisky. And a little homemade Scotland flag on there as well. The good lady wife wasn't as impressed. She thought I should have made a more professional job, but for me it's homemade. It's got to be a little bit ragged around the edges. It's unique. There we go. Now, although it's called an infinity bottle, there are other names. The most popular is probably a Solera bottle, S-O-L-E-R-A. Now, the Solera sort of process, I think Solera in Spanish means on the floor, or something like that, on the floor. I don't speak Spanish. So the Solera process, it comes from sherry, the sherry process. And in sherry, what they'll do, as they make younger sherry, almost said whisky there, they will have different ages, different maturations of sherry. They generally do it youngest at the top in the warehouse, and then they'll have the older sherry in the barrels as you go down. And they take the sherry to bottle out of the bottom barrel. They don't take it all out, so they leave some in, and they'll top that up with the next oldest whisky to top up. And then they'll get the younger, I said whisky that time, the next youngest sherry. And then they'll get the next youngest sherry to top that up, and then just put very young sherry in the top. And this, over time, it sort of ensures a consistency of flavour, so that you've not got too much variation, and every time you bottle your sherry, you're going to get all the benefits and the consistency from the previous oldest and keep that quality assurance up. So that's the sort of Solera process, and you can apply it to other spirits as well, but in a limited term or limited fashion it's been employed in Scotch whisky, other whiskies as well, but I'm talking about Scottish whisky. That's what I talk about. The Glenfiddich Distillery up on Speyside, they have a Solera edition, Solera Reserve. So they're using a sort of a rollover of whisky. They're adding young whisky to older whisky and then bottling the older whisky and topping it up with younger whisky. So you can call it a infinity bottle, you can call it your Solera bottle. Doesn't really matter, the process is much the same. Now, what are the rules? There are no rules. You make up your own rules. There's various different things you can pick and choose. Some people simply use them. Some people have had infinity bottles and didn't realise they had infinity bottles, because every time they get to the end of a bottle they'll just pour it into another bottle and they'll top up all their last 2 or 3 pours from each bottle. They end up with an infinity bottle. There's no real rhyme or reason. They're not thinking about blending it or any particular target flavour. All they're doing is adding whiskies as they come to the end of the bottle. So you can do it that way, a little bit haphazard, but that's just going to keep the whisky changing. Sometimes it might be nice, sometimes maybe not so nice. It's one way of doing it. You might decide to do, what I've decided to do is Scottish single malts. That's all I'm going to add. You could decide to add just Canadian whisky only, Irish whisky, you could go American, do your bourbons, do rye whisky. You could go crazy and start adding all these different ones together. Doesn't really matter, whatever you want to do. For me, single malt Scotch. For you, pick your parameters. Who knows, I might even change over time, add an Irish in or a Japanese, something like that, who knows. So that's one of the parameters you could choose. You might want to go for rare or expensive whiskies. You might want to be a really, really exclusive bottle. A little bit more cachet about it. Now, a lot of people will recommend when you're filling up your bottle, either take a note of what you've put in, and that can include obviously the name of the whisky, age, strength, etc. The amount, some people do it in ounces, however you want to do it, and the date that you add it as well. Maybe it's up to you. As always, one rule, no rules. Make them up as you go along. Some people have a little sticker on their bottle and they'll record the whiskies they've added. I do not have that yet, but I am going to add it. And I'm going to do that in a later video. As you can see as well, this bottle is now about halfway. So I've drank about half of it, and it's about time. I'm basically going to drink half and then refill, and then drink half, refill. A lot of people drink 1 dram and then refill it, top it up as they go. So that's what I've decided to do. I've been taking this bottle out quite a lot when I've been hill walking recently. What better way to taste my infinity bottle than in the great outdoors, top of a hill, a bit of altitude, some nice fresh air, some good Scottish weather. So it tends to accompany me when I go up a hill. So it's even topped up, and that will come in another video. Now I'm going to show you the colour of my infinity bottle. I've got a little bit of white paper here, so hopefully you can see as well. I've got a nice rich colour, and I'll talk you through the components in my bottle for you as well, what I all added. Again, no real rules, make them up as you go along. I told you I did single malts. I didn't do bottle ends. I did 1 or 2 bottles I was coming to the end of, but I decided to put 9 different single malts into my infinity bottle. So the first one, almost like my base I suppose, I decided to go for the Glen Farclas 105. For anyone who hasn't heard of the Glen Farclas 105, it is the strongest regular issue single malt on the market. It comes in at 60%, very strong. It's relatively young. It's generally said to be about 8 to 10 years old, but I really do like the Glen Farclas Distillery. I love the people that work there. I love the whole ethos, and great whisky as well. So a little bit of Glen Farclas had to go in, and why not start off with the 105? Gives my Infinity whisky a bit of oomph, a real kick up the backside, really. The Glen Farclas 105 was the first whisky that I put in. The second one had to be a bit of Islay for myself, and last year on Father's Day I got a bottle of Kilchoman Sanig. So it's not an age statement, but the Kilchoman Sanig is quite a sort of sherry intense Kilchoman. So it's got that Islay smokiness, the peatiness, and it's got sherry. My two sort of favourite areas of whisky flavour, if you like, are that peat smoke and a bit of sherry, a bit of sweetness, a bit of sort of rounded depth. So the Kilchoman Sanig ticked those boxes. So I popped a little bit of that into my Infinity. That's the first two. The next one that I added was from Speyside as well, the Glenfiddich Distillery. Matches my name. Keith is a little town in the northeast of Scotland. All sorts of distilleries in and around the town. Maybe the most well known will be Strathisla. It's said to be, or often said to be, the most picturesque distillery in Scotland. So a little bit of Glenfiddich. It was the distillery exclusive that I added, so it's not got an age statement, but why not put a little bit of Speyside just to help it out, help it along. So the 105, the Sanig, the Glenfiddich. Now the next one was another Speyside, and quite a heavy sherry Speyside, and it was from this bottle here. Now when you finish a whisky, why not turn the bottle into a lamp, make a use of it. So this is the Glen Rothes, again another non-age statement, but it's it was called the what was it, the Maker's Mark, Whisky Maker's Cut, sorry, Maker's Mark, obviously an American whisky, the Whisky Maker's Cut. And I opened this a couple of Christmases ago. Very sherry, really nice whisky. So that was coming to the end of its life, and that got turfed in alongside the other ones. Another one I added just to try and go all around Scotland is the Glenfiddich. So I added some Glenfiddich, the 12-year-old, their standard age statement. It's a lowland whisky. It was the closest distillery to Edinburgh. There is a distillery now in Edinburgh. There's two distilleries in Edinburgh now, and Glenfiddich is just outside 5, 6, 7 miles, something like that. So a little bit of lowland whisky thrown into the mix. Now I also had an old bottle of Talisker 18-year-old lying around. That was coming to the end as well. So I'm up on Skye very often, usually at least once a month. I reckon I've been to Skye the best part of 200 times, the Isle of Skye. So I had to put some Talisker. Talisker is often seen as quite a smoky whisky. I don't think so. It's a bit more mellow, but it does have a lot in common with your Islay distilleries. They do use peat in the process. It's got a little bit of peat about it, and it's right on the coastline as well. So some Isle of Skye whisky, Talisker 18-year-old. Also, another island or archipelago, group of islands that I visit quite often are the Orkney Islands. And there are two distilleries on Orkney. You have Highland Park and Scapa, both just outside Kirkwall, the main town. So I didn't have any Highland Park at the time. I had some Scapa, again a non-age statement, but Scapa Skiren, Skien. So I popped some of that in here as well. There's a little bit of Orkney in the bottle. What else did I put in? There was, I wanted to put something a bit more rare in, and obviously I'm over on Islay. I talk about Islay quite a lot, and about, I think it was 3 years ago, I got a bottle at the Islay Whisky Festival, Fajula. Now, all the distilleries issue at least one, usually two, sometimes three festival exclusive bottles at the festival, but there's also a company who release a brand name whisky called Lagan. Now Lagan, or Loch Lagan, Lagan was the seat of the Lords of the Isles, the old sort of the rulers of the Western Islands. And Loch Lagan is where the Lord of the Isles lived. So that's, if you like, what it's named after. And Lagan is a whisky. It comes from a Mystery Isla distillery. But this particular festival release, it was in 2017, it was a Portwood cask strength. Again, no age statement, but the whisky actually looked a little bit pink. It absolutely fascinated me. Really nice whisky, very florid. It had that peat smoke obviously, but quite pungent florid, and you got a real sort of port flavour, a real effect. So I put a little bit of the Lagan. It wasn't the most expensive whisky in the world, but quite rare, quite unique, and quite intriguing. So there's a little bit of that in there as well. So I think that's 8. You've got the Glen Farclas 105, you've got the Glen Kinchie, the Glen Rothus, the Glen Keith, we've got the Lagan. We also had the Talisker and the Scapa, that was 7, and the Kilchoman, of course, Kilchoman Sanig, and the last whisky that I put in, because you just basically have to, or I had to anyway, was the Laphroaig 10 years old. Peat, smoke, in your face, make sure it was smoky enough for me. So that was the 9 whiskies that I put into my infinity bottle. It's down to about halfway. It'll be getting filled up soon, and when I do, I will add some new whiskies, and I'll do it for you on the video. But I want to tell you what this one's like before it goes forever, although it will still be there, it will change its character. So, in my little comedy glass, I do like this glass, I'll tell you about the nose, tell you a little bit about the flavour. It's not too sophisticated, it's very nice on the nose. Quite a nice sweetness, you don't get too much of the smoke. It's sort of hidden a little bit, it is there, which is good. But you've definitely got that sort of sherry smell. So what I'm pretty much aiming for, the smoke and the sherry. So quite sweet, sherry on the nose. Once you drink it, you certainly get the strength. I wouldn't say it's too rounded. I wouldn't say it's too sophisticated. It comes at you, so it's probably a bit of the Glen Farclas 105, that strength underlying it all. A little bit of the Laphroaig as well, just to line up that strength a little bit, but it's much smokier on the palate, in the mouth. Nothing wrong with it at all. Could quite happily drink a lot more of it. It would be a shame to change it, but that's the nature of infinity whisky, I suppose. So hopefully that explains quite a lot to you about infinity bottles, infinity whisky. If you don't have one, get one. I never actually mentioned the bottle. I don't know if anyone can actually recognise this bottle. You could use an old decanter that's lying about. You could just pick the first bottle that comes along. I do like the marketing in whisky bottles, all sorts of beautiful different shapes. So there was a bit of thought went into it, and eventually I decided to use the bottle from Bowmore. Bowmore is the oldest distillery on Islay. It's like the sort of the granddaddy, I suppose, of Islay whiskies. I'm a whisky a smokehead from Islay, so very apt, very fitting. So get your infinity bottle started. Maybe if you have one already, you can look up things on Instagram, just hashtag infinity bottle. You'll see other people posting things. That's what I tend to follow quite a lot. Put some comments in, any experiences you've had, any recommendations you have, and yeah, start the discussion, start the bottle. But there we go. So that's all about infinity whisky. All the best. As usual, I'll give you a little toast before I go. So if you have your infinity handy, Slán Java. Cheers.